grim. Why do the good die young?
Well, usually because I get confused.
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. Over the past week, I was hit by the worst entertainment news imaginable. Smiling Friends is about to end. No, it wasn't canceled. Thankfully, my arch nemesis Warner Brothers Discovery isn't that stupid. Although they are pretty stupid considering the ups and downs of the possible buyout and mergers with both Netflix and Paramount. As of March 2026, I am still not convinced that the sale will even happen anymore. Paramount could still pull out and make this the funniest waste of all of our times ever.
Well, that was pointless.
But they at least have enough common sense to try to keep Smiling Friends on the air. No, for the first time in recent memory, it wasn't ignorant corpos which put an end to the fun. It was the creators themselves. They even put out a long video explaining why they decided to go down this path. And to make a long story short, they feel burnt out from working non-stop on the show and feel as though that continuing the series right now would lead to a dip in quality, and they would prefer to end the show at the top of their game rather than slowly degrading into slop. And you know what? I can understand that.
Thank you!
If you don't know, Smiling Friends is a show which focuses on the Smiling Friends organization. Charlie, Pim, Alan, Gleb, and Mr. Boss. Their job is simple yet complicated at the same time. They're hired to make their client smile, which sounds easy, but the task proves to be absurd sometimes with how outrageous the requests tend to become. And while the show is completely insane at times, it's anchored by relatable characters and a metaphor for all possible work in the service industry, which is to satisfy clients enough that they come back and recommend you to more people so you receive more business.
Coincidence? I think not!
To be honest, this isn't exactly shocking news, and not simply because Mr. Frog actually received his narrative conclusion to his story. Zach and Michael are on record stating that they design every single season to end in a way that feels like it could be the genuine conclusion of the story. Originally, it was done because they didn't know if they would get the chance to continue the show. They could be canceled, but it was also done so they were free to make this decision to stop. That way, they could put an end to the show when they felt that the series reached its natural ending point, or that they simply couldn't keep up with the phenomenal quality of the show anymore.
Look, the point I'm trying to make is nobody is born cool. Except, of course.
There are, in fact, 2 more episodes that are completed. They are, in fact, coming out, which I didn't expect for Season 3 to have any more episodes. The Gleb episode was such a perfect conclusion with 2 of the funniest jokes in the series that I genuinely thought that Season 3 was over. So it's not over yet, but once those episodes are out, that is it. We are not going to get any more Smiling Friends, which is one of the saddest things I've heard in 2026 that wasn't just a real life horror that I didn't want to know was happening in the world. Of course, while I will miss Smiling Friends deeply and sincerely, I can't deny the absolute respect that I feel for Zach and Michael for making this decision. This is not the financially best option for them. By far, continuing the franchise while compromising the quality would stuff their pocketbooks to the brim in a way I would have understood if they compromised. The call of money can simply be too damn strong for people to ignore, but they did it. They didn't compromise on themselves and their work. Instead, they're planning to leave Smiling Friends as a perfect set of 3 seasons that will be watched and rewatched for years upon years to come.
No notes?
No notes.
No notes!
No notes.
No notes!
No notes. It's perfect.
They did say that they're not ruling out the possibility of returning to Smiling Friends in some way in the future. In fact, I could picture them coming back in 3 to 5 years to do a movie which makes a storybook conclusion for these characters. I'm not going to hold my breath or get my hopes up too high, but it is in fact a possibility, one that is very plausible, one of which I would look forward to as well, because we never got to the point where anyone got sick of smiling friends. It did not reach the point of me staring at the show and declaring, how the hell can I miss you if you never go away?
Go away. Go away, you.
And this got me thinking, when exactly is the right time for a series, a show, or a franchise to end? There could always be the declarative statement of simply whenever the creator feels like it should be over, but that isn't always true as well. As much as I love One Piece, I cannot argue against the statement that it is far too long now. The series has been going on for over 30 years, and despite what Oda might be saying, it probably won't finish within this decade because that insane man keeps getting new ideas that he somehow manages to implement into a series which is older than I am. One Piece is a manga/anime which follows Monkey D. Luffy, a young man who ate a devil fruit, giving him rubber superpowers at the cost of never being able to swim ever again. He's a pirate who wants to gather a crew in order to find the legendary treasure One Piece and become the Pirate King. And while this might sound simple, I can assure you that this fictional world is even wilder than Smiling Friends. If I could describe most everything that happens after Water 7, you would think that I was tripping on the good stuff. While I wouldn't necessarily say that the manga has gotten bad, it does feel as though there's some staleness to the formula after the Wano arc concluded. Like, this should be reaching the end soon, right? Oh, no. In fact, the live action show has only really gotten started despite being like 3 years old at this point, and they're making a spin-off to specifically focus on Nami and Robin. Damn, people are really throwing money at Oda to milk this, because at the rate the live action show is going, these actors will be middle-aged by the time they make it to Thriller Bark.
Which raises a pertinent question. What is taking so long?
So even when One Piece technically ends, it's not really going to end. The call for the money will always bring it back, even if the original manga actually does end. And I'm not holding my breath over here. The story will continue because the anime is actually getting remade as we speak. Now that is too much, and Oda has complete say over all of this. I mean, sure, get your money, get your bag, but come on, dude. Just focus on finishing the manga at this point. Your health has been failing you for over a decade. Please finish the story.
We just need money. One more decent take and we're gone.
Those are the single biggest reasons why the person or people behind the scenes can't always be trusted to know when something should end, because they can and will be swayed to continue something long past the point that it should be over, or before it becomes oversaturized with its own content. Shonen battle manga aimed at boys has this problem. There has hardly been a widely popular series which went on for years upon years that wasn't brought back for the sake of money or because the creators can't come up with new ideas which are as good or as popular as their most famous work.
Ah, here we go again.
And that leads into another example of this. The Song of Fire and Ice books will never be completed while George R.R. Martin is still alive. I think that we can safely assume that at this point, probably for a multitude of different reasons. The books were probably supposed to end just like the show did before the final season flopped and everyone hated on it. The dude stopped writing for too long and is rusty at this point. He's probably forgotten a hell of a lot of stuff that he wanted to put in. Plus, George really has no incentive to write anymore when everyone is tickling his taint for being involved in TV adaptations. And this is coming from someone that absolutely adored A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
Well, hang on, you've just...
No, I like it. This is brilliant. But I like this.
Now, don't get me wrong, Martin is absolutely fantastic while working with these adaptations, if he actually has written down what has happened and the people involved follow his work. Then the television show truly becomes phenomenal. But if they run out of written material or the showrunners go off the rails based on what Martin wants, the franchise outright falls apart, which is why I'm worried, because the Hedge Knight novellas are not finished. Yes, another adaptation of something that hasn't been completed. Thanks, George. Thanks for giving us stuff that we like and then never finishing anything ever at any point. We appreciate that.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
There will never be a definitive conclusion to the battle for the Iron Throne and the looming threat of the White Walkers, because George isn't going to write it. He has shattered every single deadline that he's ever made for himself. He's decided that he's not going to finish the books, and he just hasn't told anyone yet. Instead, he's going to have the cush job of telling people if they're doing a good job or not on his shows and putting his name on absolutely everything. Finish the damn book, George. I'd like to actually start reading the source material without knowing that I'd have to stop 2/3 of the way through because they're not finished yet. I mean, come on, we are talking about an almost 80-year-old morbidly obese man. He could croak tomorrow and no one would be shocked. It's over. It dies with him. At best, Brandon Sanderson finishes the books for him, which George says he doesn't want to happen and the fans seem against. And then my arch nemesis at WBD make Game of Thrones Brotherhood once he's gone. And if you don't understand that reference, the original Full Metal Alchemist anime was coming out faster than the manga was being updated, so the show made things up at the very end. And then when the manga was completed, they just did a completely faithful adaptation called Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Does that make sense? Ladies and gentlemen, I am not making any sense. None of this makes sense.
Full Metal Alchemist follows Edward and Alphonse Elric, who lost parts or the entirety of their bodies when they used alchemy to try to resurrect their deceased mother. They are searching for the Philosopher's Stone in order to regain what they've lost. And this series had a manga and 2 anime adaptations, which came out faster than the time that it's taken Martin to write a single book. And the series is done now. There are no sequels or prequels, there's no spin-offs, it's done, completed. While there were a few hiccups with the shows along the way, it ended perfectly and was never ruined ever at any point. I love that.
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Not to say that prequels are a bad thing. I recently did a video explaining what makes a perfect prequel. And Lord help me, I'm going to be talking about Better Call Saul again. Oh my god. But if you took Breaking Bad, the original Red Dead Redemption, and the original Godfather film and put them into a vacuum, you probably wouldn't think that there needed to be any more to these stories. It was time to move on. And when I originally heard that each of these tales had prequels, I got nervous because many different things can go wrong, outright ruining the original series, all of which you can hear about in that video.
Shame, shame, shame. Shame on you.
But those were times where there actually did need to be a continuation. The next part of the story was justified. As a member of the audience, I originally thought that the stories were done. I thought that any possible continuation would be redundant, as though there was nothing that they could do to change my mind. But I was wrong, dead wrong. There are times when continuing the story past the original conclusion is a good thing. If there is a good idea about what to do next to improve the tale, then there's a reason for the ending to no longer be the definitive ending, kind of like with Kung Fu Panda.
I can explain.
Kung Fu Panda follows Po, the son of a noodle shop owner who is one day declared to be the Dragon Warrior, the person who is meant to bring peace and hope all across China. Based on the title, you can guess that Po is a panda who originally has problems training and fighting due to having a vastly different body type compared to everyone else who is training. Because pandas are creatures so helpless in real life that I don't know how they even survived this long through natural selection. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Kung Fu Panda is a movie that I didn't think that I would like when it originally came out when I was a kid. I thought it would be silly and stupid, making fun of fat people trying to do kung fu and martial arts. And those old trailers were bad. There was not really anything redeeming about it. I thought the whole Jack Black thing was a joke. But to my absolute shock, the original film was fantastic. As someone who has trained in the martial arts for his entire life, I adored the original when I was a kid. I even remember seeing it as a child with my dad in the theaters. He elbowed me and asked me when I was going to be able to do what Tai Lung did during the prison escape.
Thank your father, kids. Thanks, Dad.
And hot damn, they did this to me 3 consecutive times. I was certain that the sequel would be a cash grab, and that the third one wouldn't be able to tie everything up into a neat bow. But they pulled it off. They made a perfect trilogy using a concept I thought would never work to begin with. I was dead wrong, because any concept can work if you put enough good writing into it. But you know, that changed when the fourth one came out. That one I did predict would be a big pile of dog turds, and boy, I was right. That one just plain suck. Nothing really endearing about it at all. A corporate mandated continuation. There was no idea for the story that needed to be told. It was a movie that didn't need to be made other than for the sake of money.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Corporate meddling is rarely, if ever, a good thing. It's another reason why I'm still shocked that Smiling Friends is over, why it was allowed to die. The show is making money through merchandise alone. You wouldn't think that WBD would let it go, but kudos to my corporate nemesis. They did the right thing this time. That's 2 W's I have to give them in 2026 so far. On Night of the Seven Kingdoms and Smiling Friends. They treated those right at the very least. They're still incredibly, infuriatingly stupid based on how they're handling the latest Looney Tune movie alone, but I give them credit where credit is due.
Impressive. Very nice.
But if you want to see some of the biggest corporate fumbling and mess-ups that you could ever possibly imagine, we need to move to the video game side of storytelling. More specifically, Resident Evil and Silent Hill, the 2 single biggest video game horror franchises ever. Both of which were outright dead for a while there, which is weird to think about considering that both of the franchise have been revitalized to the point that the fans are eating good, at least to a small extent.
Wow! Okay!
Okay, one more than the other, more Resident Evil than Silent Hill, but there have been good Silent Hill stuff coming out, so there's that. And if you don't know, Silent Hill is a franchise about said town where unexplained, supernatural, and possibly eldritch horrors haunt people, creating nightmares based on their trauma, pain, and insecurities. Except Silent Hill F, where it's set in a random town in Japan. Great story though. I love the idea of the franchise following random people around the planet to show different nationalities and issues across the world. Because oh my god, am I sick of Americanization infesting everything. Everything has to do with the United States. Even something set in mother Africa has to be about the US in some way. Are there no interesting issues over there in other countries? I know there has to be. Why are we focusing on the US all the damn time? I'm sick of it. I live it. Show me something else for the love of God.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
The negative aspect of Silent Hill F is that the gameplay is not great. At its absolute best, it's tolerable. At its absolute worst, it gets in the way of enjoying the story. Just stop making me fight things. I want to see what happens next. which is a big step down from Silent Hill 2 Remake, which is the first game in the franchise where it's actually fun to play while having a great story. Yes, atmosphere and all that is better in the original, but I never once heard someone talk about how fun it was fighting a boss in that game. Just more how amazing the horror and symbolism of the creatures were, which is fair, but it's still not really a fun game to play.
Oh, I forgot how bad it looks.
I've seen worse.
But while I enjoyed the story surrounding the life of Hinako and the struggles of a young woman in 1960s Japan, the series is not coming up all sunshine and rainbows. It's not coming up Millhouse. Return to Silent Hill is a movie adaptation of Silent Hill 2, which is the single greatest survival horror story in gaming, and perhaps of all of fiction. They ruined it by making the character edgy and cool and taking all the nuance out and beating you over the head with the symbolism by making Pyramid Head shout "me" at James. Yes, it was that bad. I hated it. That is the difference between corporate meddling and someone trying to tell a story in a franchise, because there was not someone out there that was excited to share Silent Hill 2 with a wider audience in movie form. Instead, some corporate idiot decided that they needed to make a movie, and so they threw something together as a result. Far different from Silent Hill F, which, while a rough experience, has the best writing since Silent Hill 3, which is a game that came out in 2003. Yes, that is a 22-year gap between that high of quality of writing. Yeah, that's pretty sad.
Oh, I made myself sad.
Yeah, Silent Hill was dead for a long time, because the other games that came out during that time are poo-poo-ka-choo. Poopsie daisies, I do like 4, but it's not as good as the original 3. And the others, oh boy, they're bad. But someone had an idea for the franchise that they were passionate about, making something that is a flawed gem, and now they're continuing it, making interesting things in it again. And wouldn't you know, that wasn't the only horror series in gaming which was in the grave but came back to life through a miracle.
Are you two still living?
Unlike Silent Hill, Resident Evil is not known for its amazing writing. No one is going to look at you and tell you that the plot is phenomenal or mind-blowing, or that the characters go through deep emotional arcs. Everyone loves the characters, don't get me wrong. People are currently obsessed with Leon and Grace from the latest game, but it's more about the experience of the games and the atmosphere compared to the riveting lore. Because if you start pulling on the strings of the loose reasoning about everything that's happening, then it will unravel rather quickly.
So I am confusion. Why is this one Kansas, but this one is not Arkansas?
But my God, are the scares, the atmosphere, the locations, the campy humor, and the over-top action so damn good. You can go from being scared, hiding in a corner from a giant baby that's going to kill you, to deflecting rockets with a hatchet within a few minutes of each other, and somehow it all just works.
All of this just works. It's not, I'm not kidding.
Considering how well the franchise is doing right now, you might be shocked that the series was on death's door for a significant amount of time there. Resident Evil 5 had mixed reactions due to the co-op, and Resident Evil 6 was a giant mess that no one really liked. So much so that the game almost killed the franchise. The movies didn't help either, with everything being a campy excuse for the director to dress his wife up in sexy outfits and have her kill monsters, which, you know what, I can't hate him for doing that.
Disappointed!
But no one really wanted a new Resident Evil game until 7 came out and took the series back down to its roots, focusing on a random dude searching for his wife in an actual residence filled with evil people because she went missing there. And it is brilliant, shifting to first person and showing the perspective of a guy who is way over his head and not equipped to handle any of this. And I don't care what anyone says, Ethan Winters was such a stale piece of white bread as a character that I grew to love this faceless man, and nothing anyone can say can change that. Is he better than the other protagonists? No, but I get a kick out of him.
I just think they're neat.
So the key to the continuation of any type of tale is that there needs to be a real reason other than money for this to exist. There has to be a story which needs to be told. There needs to be a new angle. There needs to be a reason. If something is made with money in mind exclusively, then it won't ever be good. Quality comes from a combination of wanting to be profitable, a need for the story to be continued in some way, and also having a lot of passion behind the scenes. You have to have all three. If you miss one, then something falls apart. If there's a story that needs to be told, but the person making it doesn't want to do it, then it doesn't work. Just look at The Dark Knight Rises. The Christopher Nolan movies most definitely should have been a trilogy all along. After The Dark Knight ended, there 100% needed to be a third film. It was set up for that. There was a story to tell and a path to being financially profitable. The problem was that Christopher Nolan didn't have any passion left to give about Batman after The Dark Knight. He wanted to go off on his own and to make his own original film ideas, which I have no problem with this. Go be you, even if some of them get a bit too allegorical and less grounded in reality for my tastes.
I mean, it's alright, like...
But the demand for the third movie was there, so much so a bunch of people who didn't want to make this movie got together to make a story which demanded to be made, and you could tell that there was not a whole lot of passion behind all of this. Nothing about how the film looks is wrong, but there are enough plot holes in the writing to make the Grand Canyon green with envy. Now, I actually do like this film, but is the writing good? No, not really. Not if you think about it for more than a single second. It makes Resident Evil games look like Shakespearean plays. Nolan went for more symbolism and emotions rather than anything grounded in reality. You know, the things that make people like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight so much.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
In a way, the state of the film felt like a protest on Nolan's part, because he felt that he was beyond Batman at this point, which is kind of infuriating if you think about how many projects don't get a real chance, how many series or movies had potential but were canceled before they could even be grounded. The fans were about to come, but they were just tossed away. You could make an entire list of Netflix shows that were cut before they even had a chance. But for the sake of conciseness, let's talk about what is perhaps one of the most famous cancellations in history, Firefly.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Now, to be fair, Firefly did receive a movie follow-up called Serenity, based off the spaceship that they were all in, but it wasn't the same or as good, and it wasn't what the audience wanted. They didn't strike when the iron was hot, and the franchise died away because you can't follow 9 different characters closely in a spaceship on the fringes of colonized space in such a short runtime. The series is by far one of the biggest what-ifs in television history, and it pains me to admit this because Joss Whedon is a tool and a giant hypocrite, but he made good stuff back in the day, so you gotta give him that.
I can excuse racism, but I draw the line at animal cruelty.
You can excuse racism. So, what?
That's another quality that not a whole lot of people take into account sometimes. Something needs to come out at the right time to work. It sucks, but timing is everything in storytelling. If Firefly was allowed to continue at the right moment, I think that it would have eventually grown to the greatest of sci-fi heights. Not to the extent of rivaling Star Wars or Star Trek, that would be an unfair comparison, but it would have been big. The potential, the story, and the fan base were there. Corporate meddling and panic simply got in the way, not realizing that sometimes you have to invest in things for more than 2 seconds for them to be successful.
I bet we were fun.
You wouldn't believe.
And then there's the opposite, where things go on for far too long. Shows like The Simpsons, Family Guy, and The Office at this point should have ended a long time ago. Either the original creators are gone now and not working on it anymore, or they simply don't care anymore. The same thing happened with Rick and Morty. The money was simply too good. They took complete gold and made mediocre slop instead. And I thought season 8 of Rick and Morty was good, the best overall season top to bottom since 4, but it never once reached the great heights of season 2.
Morty, where's your collar? I'll fix it. I dropped it!
That's why I respect Zach and Michael for their decision. There isn't going to be a point where we watch new episodes of Smiling Friends and lament about what used to be. We're not going to see it slowly degrade into a shell of its former self. They fought against all the odds and made their ideal show, found fans and made money, and then they got out. They didn't go on for far too long, and their passion managed to prevent them from getting canceled. And best of all, it won't continue without them, because there are countless examples of a series continuing long past their natural ending point, and sometimes that point is when it's thought of at the very beginning.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
Good Lord, Big Mouth, I have no words. How, in the name of sweet dear Lord baby Jesus, did this show get 8 seasons and a spinoff? I don't know a single soul in real life or in my online friend groups which liked this show. A cringy, gross, and deeply unfunny look at prepubescence. Everyone I've ever talked to hates Big Mouth, yet the show continued on and on and on. It flabbergasted me. Was it because the creator was a nepo baby? Did everyone just hate watch it? Just why? It's one of the biggest mysteries and conspiracy theories that I actually believe that it was a money laundering scheme or something like that. Someone at Netflix just wants to watch the world burn, I guess.
It's not about money. It's about sending a message. Everything burns.
But even then, it has the right to exist. I dislike the show, but I almost always believe that almost every form of art has a right to exist. Someone, somewhere, has to enjoy it, at least supposedly. That's what I've been told with Big Mouth. There is only one exception to this rule, Joker 2, a movie demanded by corporate WBD, those complete and utter assholes, and made by a guy who hated that he was even involved with the original. This sequel was literally an apology letter from him so that he could get more work in Hollywood, which pissed off the original fans and didn't please the haters. Not only that, it had the gall to call itself a musical and bring Lady Gaga into the storm, only to waste that completely.
This is worthless.
It's less than worthless, my boy.
It tried to ruin the tragic story of Arthur Fleck, a mentally ill man who was treated like trash by absolutely everyone. And it's almost like there was symbolism in the original movie with the streets being lined with trash or something. I don't know. You know, the first film was literally perfect, with the message obviously being that showing just a tiniest bit of decency to someone can prevent terrible things. It wasn't about incels, white supremacy, or mass shooters. It's a story about how we abandon people to the wolves, and that leads to terrible results that no one wants. Anyone who came out of that movie thinking anything radical other than a desire to help people and to be a bit more kind was delusional.
Are you crazy? Or just plain stupid?
If I could erase a single piece of fiction from the world, it would be Joker 2. I mean, besides the actual evil and immoral stuff, CP does exist. No, I mean real fiction as an art form, not something that's an actual crime against humanity. Nobody wanted Joker 2. No one asked for it. The plan was destined to lose money and upset everyone. Corpos, actors, and the audience were all pissed. Completely and utterly worthless garbage. It's the worst type of continuation where I have to ignore it so that I can enjoy the original.
Perhaps I treated you too harshly.
Yeah, making something with spite in mind was not the way to go. Joker didn't need a sequel. There was no continuation that would make it better. Continuing it would only make it worse, and that's the ultimate line. Does continuing a series contribute to the story? Does it make what came before better in retrospect? Does it provide something with real value? Is there passion involved? Are stupid corpos going to meddle and ruin everything? That's the line. That's how you should know if something is meant to end already.
It's over. Go home.
Everything must someday come to an end. Everything dies. Even with all the reboots and sequels, this fact remains true. The key is finding the natural stopping point. Are the character arcs completed? Are the jokes perfect? Are there creative juices still left in the tank? Is there a new angle to approach? Is there passion for making something that people would enjoy? Those are all the questions that creators need to ask and answer about whether or not something should continue. Some things just need to be put down. down, or at the very least, given a chance to rest, Gravity Falls could come back and I would be perfectly happy after 2 nearly perfect seasons and a long break. In that way, it mirrors Smiling Friends.
Let me die! Let me die in peace!
To bring it full circle, I want to use a recent example from pro wrestling. There's a guy named AJ Styles. He is an almost 50-year-old man that has been wrestling for the vast majority of his life. He's gone everywhere, he's done everything, he's reached heights people could only dream of in his industry. At his 10-year anniversary with WWE, he decided that it was time to retire because, according to him, his neck hurt, he was achy all over, he couldn't move as well anymore, and he didn't want to continue while not being able to perform at the level he expected from himself.
Oh, and don't leave your garbage all lying around. It's a total move.
There were rumors that he would go to another promotion run by a billionaire who pays people far more than they could ever hope to make back for him. But nope, Styles is in fact done. He wants to teach younger wrestlers and spend time with his family without traveling all over the place. And this is actually a beautiful thing to see. Someone knowing their limits and going out on top of their game before they ruin their legacy by getting in the ring long after they physically shouldn't be doing this anymore, which is a thing that happens way too much in pro wrestling. You'll see guys in their 50s and 60s barely able to move, just hobbling around.
Well, that's the end of me.
There's a beauty to leaving money on the table for the sake of knowing what's best overall for yourself, for your art, and for your fans. It's better to leave them wanting more. That's what AJ Styles did, that's what Gravity Falls did, and that's what Smiling Friends is doing. For now, I'm making this in March of 2026 after all. 2 years could pass and they could join the MCU in terms of being a form of entertainment which should have already been put to an end a long time ago.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
So that's the answer to the question, when should a series or a story end? At the right time, when the arc is over, when there isn't any more story to tell, when everything is right and perfect, when there's no creative juices left, when the only motivating factor left is greed. Deep down, we all know when something is over, whether it be relationships, business ventures, or even periods of our lives. Like art, we hold onto what we should let go despite it no longer being healthy for us to focus on that anymore. Art and life mimic each other a lot. After all, there wouldn't be constant reboots, remakes, and unnecessary continuations if no one watched them or consumed them. Sometimes it's just time to put something behind us and accept that it's over. It's why Zach and Michael just legitimize themselves as the GOATs. I want to be like them when I grow up.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
But what do you think? Do you think that Smiling Friends should be over? Should it continue? What about the other examples that I gave? Did they end at the right time? Too early? Too late? Do you have examples that I didn't think of that I should have put into this video? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, if you disagree with everything I have to say, that is perfectly fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion. Thank you all so much for watching.
You're still here?
Good night, everybody! Thank you. You bye. Boom.
Do not despair.